we have Mr. Goodwin Yee, Thinking and Speaking Pete. I like this. All right, let's give Goodwin a round of applause.
This is actually part 2. So who came last month? Raise your hands. Yay. And so keep your hands up. So of those who came to this event to prepare for Pete, how many of you actually went to see Pete? Good. Everyone take a look around, because everyone who has their hands up, if you don't have your hand up, these are the people you want to go ahead and talk to as well. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and do a quick recap. Now, I kid you not, I have a lot of slides here. This is probably 70 plus with content. Part of this is covering Pete again, and then we're going to cover an overview of real estate in general and the things that you need to prepare for.
Are you going to share the slide for me?
That's up to the club. Okay, so this is what we had in last month's presentation. So quickly, I'm going to have people who have gone to both the presentation and listened to Pete quickly share different things from each of the bullet points. So it's not just about me, but it's also about what did you actually get from this. Okay? Just raise your hand and we'll get a mic out to you, and you can quickly share what you got. No one?
Well, not everyone at once.
Working, yeah, okay, all right. Don't want to blow your eardrums out. One of the things that Pete said several times, and I just, even though I knew this, I really didn't think about it, was he was really like an attitude guy. Is like behind number 5, focus on the situation, not the technique. He isn't really about technique difference. He's talking about changing your mindset and how to look at a problem and a situation. So it wasn't like what technique to use. It's more like how do we solve the problem? And he tries to do that by changing your mindset and by having the right attitude to go into it. Not like, I have all these 18 techniques, let me figure out which one's gonna work, and you're not really listening to the person. So it was more about just actual engagement with someone, talking to them and figuring out their problem and figuring out how you can solve that.
Exactly.
And then bringing financial allies and friends to solve that, especially if you don't have everything you need to do it. You know you have other friends and family that might need part of this deal or something else. That there's a way for you by utilizing your friends and family and your financial allies to solve the deal or solve the problem.
Yeah, you actually touched upon a little bit of almost all 10 right there. Okay, so does anyone have anything to share with number 1? Because otherwise I'll go ahead and mention something. Okay, so typically with an event that Pete speaks at, Andy will oftentimes convene a morning after session as well. And in that session, as individuals, you start recapping what were my takeaways, and then what are my action plans for this coming week. Okay, when you've gone through a few of those, you kind of realize that, you know, doing all this education by yourself only, that's very difficult, because you're trying to absorb something that Pete or someone else said, and then you're trying to write down notes, and Pete is already talking about something else, and you're trying to listen to that. So you tend to go ahead and catch, maybe at best, every other thing that he mentions, and you really need to hear the whole thing in order to go ahead and put it together. This is why that suggestion is number 1. Because when you talk to each other afterwards, again, the people who raise their hands, these are the people you want to go ahead and talk to. Okay, and especially when you recognize there is somebody else who raised their hand that actually went, you can ask them a question even if you went, because they may have heard that piece that you didn't hear because you're busy writing notes. Okay. So, at the very, very beginning, Pete said, ask him lots of questions, be engaged. you need to go ahead and do this, because if you don't ask those questions, you wait for someone else to go and ask those questions, someone might not ask that question. And now you have a question that goes unanswered. So then Pete will get bombarded again, like he'll talk as long as you want. What was that? You know, chasing him to the bathroom and even asking questions at that point in time. Yeah, it's good to go ahead and give the guy a break every once in a while. Okay, so ask lots of questions. Learn to get into that habit. Now, I know, at least for myself, growing up, I would always wait, right? Just kind of let everyone else ask a question, and then later on I'd talk to the instructor and things like that. No, you can't do it that way. You have to ask the questions, because you are doing this for yourself. You actually paid for this, okay? So ask those questions, get the answers that you need. And in the process, you might have asked the question that someone else wanted to ask, but then, okay, get into the mindset that you're doing this for yourself, getting the education, getting the answers that you need at that point in time. Okay, so how many people have met up with others and actually discussed these things afterwards, right? You always have to do that. Whether it's right away at a break, you know, what did Pete say about this, or at lunch, or at dinner times afterwards, and things like that. Always talk to others. Always, if there's a gap in what you heard, especially when he talks about the more complex multiple step kind of situations, right? Anyone that has gone to exchangers, you probably see me put up my 1031 target. And I won't explain that one in detail this time, because I did that last month. But that one, it took me, I think, 3 paid sessions with Pete to figure it out. Okay, and that's what like 3 different classes and manuals, and taking notes, and then finally asking other people, because I realized I couldn't get enough notes to capture all the little nuances and as well as the pertinent points that portion required. So once I got it, I was like, wow, the light bulb goes on. I really get this. I really want to do this. If I only did it one time, it would change my life. Okay, and Pete's done it at least 4 times with his property. So if you don't know about that, take the class. Okay, this is something that is difficult for people to understand at first, because they're geared towards technique. Okay, and if you realize that if you learn the story, if you learn what Pete is saying in terms of the story, and you remember the story, you are actually teaching yourself technique at the same time. And it's a technique in which you can go ahead and relate back to a potential seller or potential buyer later on. And as you get more experience and you start relating your own experiences versus someone else's experiences, then it becomes more genuine. Then people get to understand it better. Okay, don't focus just on the numbers. Learn about what that person actually needs versus wants. These are the things that basically are drawn out, elicited just by asking the questions. Okay, like who can relate to what would you ask for if the seller wants all cash? What did Pete say about that?
What are you gonna do with
Who remembers what was said in the back?
What are you gonna do with the cash?
Yeah, what are you going to do with the cash? And Pete's example was, so a year from now, I'm going to visit you wherever you're at, and you're going to have this nice box with all the cash in there because you like the cash so much that you didn't want to use it for anything else, and we're just going to go ahead and take a look, and he said, that's a nice pile of cash. Right? So in Pete's way, he's trying to draw out the true answer. What is this cash going to be used for? Is it necessary to go and pay for someone's college education or their medical expenses that need to be taken care of? Maybe it's time to replace a vehicle or get a new vehicle for someone. Maybe it's downsizing the house and now you're looking at a condo instead of a house. What is this cash going to be used for? Okay, and as Evan brought up, focus on the situation, not the technique. If you walk in there and basically say that, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try and do this as a no money down deal, how well is that gonna work if that's the only thing you're focused on? And typically the seller's going to say, yeah, I want all cash. All right, so from one end of the spectrum to the other, how are you gonna make that work? Pete talks about what? Who remembers the relationships? How many deals did he get from just a few relationships? A lot. Something like out of just a 2-digit number of relationships of people that he did business with have been repeat business. In fact, it's not even the same kind of relationship. So someone who he might have bought a house from now has this pile of cash. And oh, by the way, I know that you have this pile of cash. How would you like to go ahead and make money with your money? How would you like to be a lender? Now we just change the nature of that relationship, okay? Or you have a happy renter, okay? And now they can have someone else basically take care of repairs and things like that. And they're saving money and they're putting that money away in the bank, earning how much percentage in the banks these days? Well, a little bit more than zero. Yeah, if you take a look, you can actually see quite a few banks are now doing 5%. From a lender perspective, okay, no. But from a civilian perspective, 5%, you know, from what we talked about, you know, last month, even a couple months ago, where I brought up 0.1, 0.01, you know, numbers like that, 5% is getting to be pretty good, pretty easy to go ahead and find, okay? So, opportunities. Pete said, opportunities are found, deals are created. Think about that. How do you find deals? Pete said, oh, I think I found in over 50 years, 60 years, he's found one deal, okay, and he's looking for his second one. Other than that, everything that he's done a deal on has been opportunities that he's turned into a deal, okay? That's a big difference in the way you prospect and close on deals. Think about how you find those opportunities, okay? And I will take this opportunity to go ahead and mention exchangers, where everything all comes together, and so you kind of pick and choose where you want to play, how do you want to play, things like that. So even as a lender, now I have the opportunity to go ahead and I can not only be a lender as what my primary function might be or my primary choice, now I can go ahead and participate in a hard asset, right? This is the ideal situation for me. Deals come together at a session like exchangers. So if you haven't been to exchangers, now is a good time to go ahead and start looking into that. Build your knowledge. Why is knowledge so important? Okay, if you took the latest and greatest advice and you read this book and you did this no money down approach, and again, if you walk into a situation where, yes, the seller wants all cash and you want to do very little to no cash yourself, how well is that going to work? You have to be pretty creative in order to go ahead and swing that, okay? So let me give you an example of how to go ahead and swing that, okay? Number one, you have to build your relationships because you need a third party, right? You may not have cash, or you may not want to part with your cash, or maybe you cannot part with your cash, okay? Cash comes in two different forms, right? We talked about this during exchangers. Comes in cash, so like savings account, checking account, or IRA. Okay, IRA comes in different forms. Okay, but generally IRAs are known for taking longer to get things done. Brianna can. How long have you been waiting for someone like? Yeah. So, well, you said you weren't in a hurry, right? Okay. So, when you learn different things and you start applying those different things, okay, you find those situations in which you can actually apply it. That's when you have a deal. Okay, how many is that going to be? What percentage? 1 out of 10 if you're doing well. Okay, so that basically is 10 out of 100, right? You're doing pretty well, just applying one particular technique. Okay, what if you knew how to do other things? Okay, so let's go back to this particular example, right? One extreme to the other extreme. Before I mention it, who has an idea on how to get it done? Okay, and Farrah cannot participate, and she's doing something anyway, so. Okay. How can you structure a deal where you go in as a potential buyer, going in with no cash, and you meet with a seller who wants all cash? Lee.
Write up a promissory note and then bring a promissory note to exchangers and sell it.
You heard me talk about this before. That's correct. That is a third party that's going to be involved, a note buyer. Okay, so yes, we're going to go and structure this. Mr. Seller, you're going to get all cash at the time of closing, but it's not going to be my cash, but you're going to get cash. Okay, we're going to introduce a third party to this, and we are going to structure your deal as a seller finance deal. Okay, so you are going to have a note created on your part, which you are then going to sell either a part or all of. Okay, so whether you decide to go and keep the note, or whether a portion or all of that note goes to this note buyer, I will make payments to whoever the note holder is. Okay, I will get the terms that I want at the price that we mutually agreed upon. You will get cash because that note buyer is going to pay you for that note. You will work out terms of how much cash you're going to get. Okay, that price could very well be different. Almost certainly it's going to be different from the price that you and I agree with. Okay, so if nothing at all, build your network. Find the note buyers. Okay, and have us as part of your deal. And we're going to be training new note buyers soon, so everybody else gets to play in this area too. Okay, what does Pete feel about selling houses? What is his thought?
Why would you sell a nice one? Is that?
Not only why would you sell a nice house like this to a seller, okay, but once you acquire that house, would you want to go ahead and sell it? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Okay, so how many houses does Pete sell of his own portfolio? He doesn't, his exit strategy is death. Yeah. Yeah. His exit strategy is death. His death, not someone else's. Okay, so that means he basically wants to keep that house forever. Now, will he sell a house? Yes, to go and get a better house, of course. All right, his goal is to go ahead and get better and better houses. So he will buy a house and use that as currency. Okay, and speaking of currency, what's the best currency that you can have? What did Pete say about that?
Promise.
Promise, that's right. Okay, when you first start out, what resources do you have? What experience do you have? What resources do you have? Very little, very minimal. Okay, the best thing that you have is a promise that you can go ahead and make to whomever you are doing business with, whether it's going to be a seller, a buyer, someone that's helping you out, maybe a potential lender, maybe a potential partner, your promise is your currency at that point. Keep that in mind. It's not all about just money, okay? A note can be currency. You can buy a note at a discount and then trade that note at face value. So what did you just do with your purchase? You got that purchase at a discount as a result, okay? Now, for the recipient of that note is good for face value of the note, assuming it's a brand new note, okay? So there's other ways to go ahead and do things other than cash. Realize that, okay? And Pete made a good point about value is subjective. And what did he mean by that? Anyone remember that? The ice cream story. Right, okay. So quickly how that went was, okay, who likes ice cream? Okay. What's your name? Josh. What's your favorite ice cream? Mint chip. Okay. Well, what are your thoughts about orange sherbet? It's all right. Okay. What's the ice cream you hate the most? Pistachio. Okay. Okay. So how much is a scoop of ice cream these days?
$17.
Okay, well, let's just pick a number. Let's just $5 a scoop, right? Okay, so if we are going by pure value alone, okay, you have one scoop of your least favorite ice cream, two of them, right? 2 scoops, okay, versus one scoop of whatever your particular favorite is, okay? Now, of course, which ice cream are you going to be holding? Not your favorite. Okay, I'm going to be holding your favorite. Okay, so my ice cream is $5, right? 1 scoop, but it's your favorite ice cream. You are holding 2 scoops of your least favorite ice cream, or at least one that you like less, and you actually like what I have more, right? This is what Pete is trying to teach in the story. Okay, would you trade me that ice cream, your $10 ice cream, for my $5 ice cream? Yeah, you would, right? Value is subjective. It's not all about the numbers only. This is what you need to get away from when you're talking to a seller. Because our typical reaction is, how much do you want to sell this house for? And then think, how much can I actually pay for this house? And you try and work the numbers and make it work, okay? You do need to have that, but you need to go and find other ways other than just looking at numbers. Talk to the seller, talk to a buyer. See what is going to work between 2 of them, whether you are the buyer or you are not.
I don't know if I can ask a question here, but.
You could.
So how do you handle talking with a seller when there's an agent involved?
So Pete talks about this as well, and so does Andy, by the way. So you don't get to see Pete that often, but you get to see Andy all the time, except tonight. Sorry. So the way that basically is handled is that the question is posed to the agent. Okay, how many of you are agents? I know we have agents here. Okay, so yeah, we have a few agents. All right. So if I come in with what Bill Cook calls the big damn hammer, and basically says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pay you 70% less expenses and things like that. So that's my offer. Okay, and so agent's trying to get the best price for the seller, right? That's your duty. Okay, so Andy's approach to the agent, just to go ahead and get the agent on his side. And where do you think Andy learned this from? Pete. Okay, so I use the 2 interchangeably. So Andy and Pete will say, how would you like to earn more money on this deal? You agents out there, raise your hand if you don't agree with that. You don't want to make more money on the deal. Raise your hand. Okay. I don't see any hands raised, so there's no agents in here after all, or no one wants to go ahead and make less money on the deal. You're okay with making more. Okay, so this is the condition by which I will go ahead and talk to the seller. You will sit there with me, and I will handle the discussion, and then I will leave, and then you can talk with your client as to the merits of what it is that I discussed with them. That make sense? Okay. So along a parallel line to this, let's say there's a house, okay, I know this doesn't happen here in California, but let's say there's a house for $100,000, okay, and this house is only worth $70,000. We think that's a deal, okay? Same thing with no agents, no hands are up, okay? So just by looking at the numbers, it's not a deal, right? So what does Andy, and therefore what does Pete say about that? Well, are you going to sell this house later on? Is this going to be one for your portfolio? In other words, this is going to be kept forever and ever and ever. And so if it's being kept forever and ever and ever, does it make any difference how much you actually pay? Of course it makes some difference, because whether you pay for it in your lifetime or it goes into another generation, yes. Because Bill Cook was at my house and we did some door knocking in my neighborhood. He offered one of my neighbors $1 billion for his house, even though the house was not for sale. And Bill explained to my neighbor that he said, it doesn't matter how much I pay for the house, as long as I get the terms that I want. You get your price, I get my terms. Okay? If you're okay with making money in your lifetime, your next generation is probably going to be happy making money in their lifetime as well. And maybe their next generation will be happy receiving that money as well. And if my generation actually thought it was a good enough deal to make this kind of offer with the terms that we both mutually agree upon, not only I will be happy, but my successive generations will be happy. Okay, so this is a generational type of event, just by structuring the offer that way. Okay, and so I know there's at least one or two of you in this room where I've offered to go out with you to do door knocking and sit with a seller and help negotiate things. Okay, and to date, no one has taken me up on that.
I didn't know that was open.
I wasn't making the offer to you guys tonight. Okay, so because I'm careful on who it is that I choose. I can't do it. I'm a lender. I'm a paper guy, right? So, but I was door knocking since I was a little kid. Okay, so Pete's thought is, I'm not going to sell a house. My exit strategy is death. I'm going to keep this sucker until I'm dead. Okay, and if I had my druthers, I'd also write up the paperwork to where successive generation can't sell it either. And screw everything up. Okay, so by helping people, you will build wealth. Network. Network. Network.
And volunteer.
Volunteer? Is that what I heard? Volunteer?
Yes.
How many volunteers do we have tonight?
Raise your hand.
Good, good, yeah. The number has actually increased from 1. And those who are enlisted, not volunteered. Okay, quickly, those of you who actually went to the class, I shared a few things. Let's quickly just hear some of your own takeaways. Because I know there were a lot. It's a 2-day class.
Since I have the mic, I'll start first.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think one of my, it's more of how you taught the last month that I was able to have takeaways in the first place. So you told us to listen to his stories and not really focus so much on what he was doing. It's the story and because I mean everything was so unique, and this is part of my takeaway, that every situation is so different. So it's not cookie cutter, it's not 70 cents on the dollar minus repairs, you know, the big hammer, right? It's what else is in my toolbox, you know, talking to other people around you at this club, and you know, so your team, your community, and it's a team sport. So, but I told you this already, but I wanted everyone to hear, I really did appreciate you sharing to like really focus on the story, not so much the technique, because I feel like that was the first time out of like the 10 times I've heard Pete speak that I understood him. So.
Yeah, it took me 3 times just to go ahead and hear the same story over and over again, to catch all the different pieces. That's when I realized that, okay, my way of learning was not working. Okay, that I'm focusing too much on certain things and I keep missing the other parts. And so the different lessons from that is that I need to go ahead and find someone else to listen to different things. And of course, everyone who's attending the same class is eligible for that. So that means building up my network, building a relationship, and building up the courage to go ahead and say, what did Pete mean by saying using a 1031 target and then doing a section 121 on that, okay, and then doing a master lease and then doing an option to buy, okay? How does all that work? And even notice that I said it in the right sequence, because when you try and figure it out, just hearing it the first time, you're not going to get the sequence of these things correct. You're not going to understand potentially that you can't do this with an investment property, because that's what section 121 actually applies to your personal residence. So you will mix it up with a 1031 exchange you might be doing on your part. So 121 actually does not apply. So now it's a completely different scenario. Not that it's bad, it's just that now the rest of it, you might be able to do it, you might not. So it all depends. Okay, change, you know, the situation can change. Okay, that's good. Okay, who else has a takeaway to go ahead and share? Yes.
Hi guys, this is Darren. So one of the takeaways that I got from Pete's class is the way Pete teaches a lot of his ways of buying and selling are very, very creative, and especially when you're talking to somebody who's just looking at it from a how much money can I get from this transaction type point of view, and maybe not thinking about all the different ways they can sell a house. Is the one thing that I like that Pete did is he said, if you tell someone on the track of stories, if you tell someone a story of how you were able to help someone else out in a similar situation and what you're able to structure for them that really helped them out. Maybe they needed to have money for the long term. They needed to have, you know, some money coming in to supplement their income for the next 15, 20 years. And so what I was able to do was help her out by paying her some money every single month to help supplement her income. If I was able to do something similar for you, do you think that would be a solution that would work with you? So basically taking something that's worked already, so it doesn't feel like it's a new idea to them. It's something that's a solution that they just haven't opened their eyes to yet, but it's working for somebody else.
Okay, one point to go ahead and make about that. Okay, so I don't know how many people caught that, but when you tell a story about someone else, aren't you taking the pressure off them because you're asking them questions, right? So how many of you like to be interrogated or subjected to like a job interview? Oh, okay, so we had some hands go up. Okay. So when you tell a story like that, it takes the pressure off of them, okay? And now you begin to build that relationship, and now they can decide, okay, yeah, I can relate to that. Okay, and so they kind of ease up a little bit, and now they will start sharing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Keep telling the stories, keep working with it indirectly rather than directly. Because what happens when you apply force against force, right? You begin to encounter resistance. Okay, so in the martial arts, we say, okay, you want to put force in my direction, I'll be happy to accommodate you, okay, and let you go by or redirect your force, whichever way you want to go and do it. I'll use your force against you. Okay, same thing when you put that force out. Okay, people will sense it innately. Okay, you're asking these questions. What do you want to do with this money? That's pretty personal, right? Okay, so look at how Pete sets up the story. Okay, so what are you going to do with this big pile of money that you're going to get from the sale of this house? Okay, that's not a direct question that they have to be defensive about. I mean, they can still feel a little bit, but it's not as much as what are you going to do with this money? Okay, we're now looking at an inanimate stack of money and admiring it a year later, 2 years later. You know, it might be in a nice case. Maybe you'll add a few more or take away some more. Okay, but this money actually is going to be used for something. Okay, otherwise, what's the point of having money just to have money? That may or may not make sense. Okay, any other takeaways?
I'm too short, so I'm Stephanie, guys. Hi. So one of my, sorry. Okay. Well, if you know it's black, if I have white, then why? One of my big takeaways, I really like how Pete zooms out when he takes a look at his real estate portfolio. He's about quality and not quantity, and so how he strategically structures his portfolio to only get quality properties versus having many units is something that I think not a lot of people hear. So I really like that because that's something that aligns with my own strategy with my rentals, so I think that's something. And the other part was he is willing to go 6 years negative on a property because he can see that if he just holds the property, it's going to take a turn, and in the end, as long as you're not going to sell it, as long as you hold the real estate. I think that was huge.
Right. The real investors basically look at it not just as it has to cash flow from day one and forever on. There are investors who basically will say, yeah, I can handle a few years of negative cash flow. It just depends on how much and what state my portfolio is in at this point. And there's going to be valuations that change that. Okay, so one of the things that Bill Cook admits to, okay, and who else took the What Box class this past weekend? I know I was on that. Anyone else? Okay, so Bill Cook is another person who learned a lot from Pete, and also many of the other people that Andy and I have learned from as well. So what does Bill say? So Bill made a mistake. He listened to all his mentors, kind of described what it was he was going to go ahead and do, got advice from everyone, and Pete told him he was not to do it. And Bill decided to go ahead and do it anyway. He sold off a good portion of his portfolio. Okay, and I think the time frame was around 2016 or so. Okay, and so what started happening in those years up until now? Properties started going up, and really shot up. Okay, and you can bet Pete didn't wait 7 years to go ahead and say, I told you so. He was probably saying it from the first month. Okay, so how much appreciation did you get from that house that you sold? And you can imagine for 7 years saying that. Okay, and then as houses started going up, okay, if you bought a house on seller finance and you were paying X amount of interest rate, and all of a sudden your interest rates went down like this and your valuation went up like this, what do you think happened then?
They
Refinanced. Yeah, got paid off. And so What kind of tax situation does that put Bill in at that point? To have all this cash coming in, which is now taxable to him, because seller finance, okay, publication 537, you know, if you don't know about that, learn about it, because that's one of the tools you should have in your toolkit. You basically pay taxes on your sale in the calendar year that you realized this income. And when you do installment sales, you get paid monthly, and maybe for a full year, you get 12 payments, right? Okay. What if you got $100,000 plus, $200,000 plus in 1 year because you got paid off and someone else got refied? Okay, and imagine that happened on multiple properties, year after year after year. Okay, how much did you just pay in taxes that you couldn't defer? Right? This is out of your control, right? Because they're refinancing. You can't control that. Okay? So, do you think Pete had a field day with Bill about that? Oh, you bet. That's why Bill makes it a point. Every time he conducts a class, every time he talks about this, he owns up to his mistake, because he knows if he's quiet about it, he will mention it. So he'll go ahead and talk about it ahead of time. All right, just go ahead and head that off. Okay, so what is the strategy? Pete likes properties. He likes hard assets. Okay, does that mean he doesn't like notes? Well, yeah, notes is another form of currency. I already mentioned that. You could buy a note at a discount, trade it, you know, at full face value as if it were cash, okay, and use that instead. Okay? So I'm a lender, so that means I like paper. Okay, does that mean I don't like hard assets? Oh, far from that. I like hard assets. I just don't like the management, or what Pete calls the thrill of management. Okay, so I'm okay if during an exchanger session someone said, I want a part of that deal, and I will manage that property for you. And I'll say, sure, I'll include you on that deal. I'll give you a piece of the action. Okay, strategy. Okay, if you have no service, then that's a way to go ahead and be involved. Who else has a takeaway?
Hi, my name's Marta. I went to Pete's seminar, and my takeaway was exactly what she said, because I asked him, I said, Pete, you know, all I have is houses, but everyone says I really have to get units. Units is where it's at. And he said to me, units? I've never cared for units. I just want nice houses, nice neighborhoods, to nice families. He said, what do people in units want? I said, I don't know. He said, they want services. And I don't want to give. At some houses that I own, he said, I have not seen the tenants in years. And I like it that way. That's what he told me. So that was one major takeaway. The other takeaway is that he's all about helping people. He said, go look for problems to solve. And that's where his main focus is, not to help himself, but to go from an angle of helping them. And when you help them, in the end, you get helped.
That's correct. And Pete's specific word for helping is interfere. Okay, so that gives you an idea how his mindset is. So he talks about when he was sitting in a restaurant and he overheard someone else at the next table say, oh, I'm happy about putting this house up for sale. Okay, so it doesn't matter if Pete's with his family, got up and walked over. I could not help but overhear that you had a house for sale, right? He interferes. He gets involved. He finds those opportunities. Okay, it's not hard to go ahead and do that. Okay, put yourself in that kind of position. Find more opportunities. Help people out. Build a relationship. Get more deals. It's basically that kind of formula. Okay. Anyone else with the? Oh, Wrong button. Anyone else with a takeaway before I move on?
One of the things that I remember him saying was that he met a woman who had a house for sale and had a buyer that wanted to buy it for like $75,000 more than he was willing to pay for it. And that other buyer was going to put a condo on there. And she was like, I grew up in this home. I have memories here. This is where, you know, all my life happened. I don't want it torn down and a condo put up. He goes, I promise you, if I buy it from you, I'll keep your house.
Right.
And she sold it to him for like $75,000 less than the other guy offered her.
Right.
And I thought that was awesome because sometimes you have to meet the emotional need of the buyer or the seller as well.
That's right.
I gotta add to that, you reminded me of something. We did a deal years ago in Apple Valley where the sellers were selling their childhood home. It was two brothers, parents are long gone. And the kid, when the seller, who was in his late 60s, was like 8 years old, he had redid the kitchen with his dad. The reason why he sold to us was I promised him we would not rip out the kitchen because he had put a spice rack underneath the sink. And so we actually kept the kitchen cabinets and just did everything else we can do, but we kept those cabinets just the way they were and just updated, modernized, and ripped none of it out. And they were extremely happy and they sold to us, and we were not the highest offer. So, yeah.
So imagine sitting there with the seller who's emotionally attached to their home, where this could have been their first home. They went through and rehabbed everything based upon the money that they kept from their jobs, little by little, over time. Okay, and obviously they had a lot of emotional investment into this. What if you offered them that they could come by and visit that house anytime they wanted to, just with some advance notice? What would that mean to them? That you could visit a childhood home where you raised all your kids, or if you're one of the kids and you're the one selling it, that you could do this. Or you even put in a clause that, tell you what, I will sell you an option where you can buy this house back someday. You think that would work? Okay, versus someone who is going to offer you 70% less expenses and things like that. That we will keep your house and you can come visit it, and you will also have an option to buy it back someday when you're ready. Okay, who do you think you would sell to? And even like against a full cash buyer. Okay, which one would appeal to you? Okay, I know what I would probably do. Okay, so think about the solutions when you're talking to those sellers. Really sense what's going on, and it's not just numbers. Okay, and when you start putting these structures into place, you will get more deals because you're listening. You're listening to what they're saying. Okay, and they will truly see that and understand that. They will take your deal. And just as Evan said, not even the highest offer. It's the right offer for them, right? So value is subjective. Okay, it's not about the money. To a certain degree, it's not 100% about the money. It's at least a certain amount of money, but it's not only about the money. Find the ways that actually work for you to go ahead and get the deal. Okay, this is going to be pretty intense. So there's going to be a lot of interpretation. I'm going to be asking you to follow this and also ask questions. So we're now going to be going through something like, I think at least 40 slides at this point, all with graphs and things like that. And a lot of the stuff you may not even be able to see clearly. I'm sorry, that's just the way the source material was.
There's still seats in front.
Yeah. bring a telescope. Okay, before we get started with this portion, any questions, any guesses on how we're going in the next few months, into the next 6 months, into the next year? Right? We'll see what the trends and projections and actual numbers look like. Yeah. Trading water? Yeah. Choppy? Right? Up and down? Sideways? Okay. Straight up? I want to smoke some of what you're smoking. Or drink some of what you're drinking. Either way. All right. Let's get into this. All right, so these are pieces that we're going to go ahead and cover. Most of this came from another source, okay? And if you haven't heard me talk about OREA, I will go ahead and put in a quick plug for them because they have an event coming up. If you've been to Exchangers, you've heard me sell the education package about this. I really believe in how these folks basically put a annual event on. There's a lot of activity that goes on. It's 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All 4 days are busy with stuff. Okay, a lot of things happen with this, so I highly recommend this event. And not only that, they have a youth academy, and the youth academy is taught by 2 kids who basically, I think the oldest one is 15 now. I think the younger one is 12. This is Eric and Devin Wolwin. Okay, they have a book, If I Can Do It, You Can Too, how they started investing in real estate at the age of 7. Okay.
What is the group name?
If you want to go ahead and take a look at the convention, it is oreaconvention.com. OREIA convention.com. I think I spelled that right.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I think combined, I have close to a dozen people coming. So I'm coordinating the travel and things like that. And I'll tell you another story about part of this later on, because I had a Zoom call last night with everyone just to work through details.
What is it?
I am leaving early Tuesday morning, October 31st. Okay, I won't go through all the details of the itinerary, but I guarantee that I have a lot of it already memorized at this point. So this is Tuesday. The event doesn't start until Thursday. This is how far advanced I will go, because I will get people acquainted with how the travel is going to be, because I've done it. I will get them acquainted with the Cincinnati area, because I used to live there for 5 years. And I will walk them through the agenda ahead of time, help them pick out what their agenda could be, give them the tips on how to structure their plan for every day, meet with them at 7:30 in the morning for breakfast to go ahead and have everyone share recaps of what they personally recommend, so that way people can adjust their agendas on that particular day, if at all possible. Okay, and help strategize different things. Get the most out of this one trip. Okay, because I had the luxury and the privilege of living there for 5 years to be able to go ahead and refine things. So because this is a definite trip to get out there, literally you'll be like a 12-hour span that people will be traveling each day. So people will be meeting at my house, I think 3:30 in the morning. I'll drop them off at LAX at 4 o'clock. I'll be at the long-term parking, catch a shuttle in. They will go through security, and they will then proceed to have breakfast. You know, we get down to this level of detail on the trip planning. Okay, I tell them where to eat and where the restrooms are close by, things like that, what to expect based upon my observations over the years. So this restaurant will be open, this one will not, okay? And, you know, this is how to expect flights with Southwest. If you haven't flown Southwest, they do things a little bit differently. It's not assigned seating. Okay, so I fill them in on all these different things. Okay, even to what kind of clothes to bring just in case. All right, so we're talking about Ohio, okay, in November. So in my past, I've had to wear a overcoat, scarf, cap, mittens, and last year it was literally like t-shirts and shorts, that kind of weather, right? So you can imagine everything and anything in between, right? How to go and do your lunches, how to go ahead and structure your dinners. I will introduce them to the people that they need to go ahead and meet at that event, because there's certain people there in Ohio that I want them to meet. And as they see other people that I know, I will introduce them to those people as well, relevant to the areas that they have interest in. Okay, let's go into this. All right, so I can't see a whole lot from this distance. This is why I usually sit up front, but the only screen I can really see is that one, and this one is so compressed that I can't really see. So, all right, so what you basically see is a fancy graph that talks about how the gross domestic product looks. Okay, you can see in past years is very, very high. Okay, and in most recent years, very low. But for the US, actually that's very good growth. Why? Because the US has higher dollar volume. Okay, so as long as you are in that dark colored section, that shows positive growth. Where you have the portions going down, that's negative growth. Okay, countries like China, okay, I can barely see the numbers, but I can see like 2 and what's that other one at the very end, 2.4? Yeah, so for the US, that is the percentage of growth. Okay, for a country like China, you're really looking at 6, 7, 8, 9% growth because they're a smaller economy. Okay, more people, but smaller economy than the US. Okay. So what does that mean? That means we're still growing. This is one of the fears that the Fed has. This is what they're trying to control. They don't want this growth to continue going up, because what's going to happen is that their one weapon is to go ahead. Oh, okay, great. That's about the same. This is like the same ratio. Okay, I have progressive lenses on, so for me to see it close, I have to, okay.
Good try.
You know, Goodwin, I'm sure you know they have these things called printers, so when you're doing slides. Yeah.
Okay. What was the point I wanted to make with this? Yeah, basically, I want to try and spend just a couple minutes on each one. Go ahead.
How do you deal with backlog the numbers of lies?
Okay, so let me give you the source of this. Okay, so when there's newspapers and there's real estate organizations and you know, any sorts of media that's going against any particular reference, and even when real estate groups are looking for how to go and correlate their numbers for their research. So for the realtors who are here, okay, you have the group NER, right? National Association of Realtors. They put out a lot of material, right? Okay, when they want to go ahead and double check their numbers, who do you think they double check against? If they even want to go ahead and double check.
That's a big assumption.
Yeah, that's a big assumption, right? Everyone has their own sorts of data. So based upon your own sorts of data, you can draw whatever conclusions that you want, okay? But if you draw against common sources of data, how do you make the interpretation of it at that point in time? Okay, so there's one guy with one company, and even though I admit to stealing it, I do give him credit at the very end. Okay, and his company is there as well, CJ Patrick. Okay, so I think it's Patrick. Yeah. So that's your source. So feel free to go and check the source and then see how reliable they are. But this material came during the OREA presentation, week 1, which was not this past Monday, but the previous Monday. Okay, and so if you sign up for the free information sessions that they have every Monday leading up to the event, this is very good data. Okay, and for typical real estate clubs and association, sometimes they will go through a presentation like this for each monthly session. Okay, right now we don't have the resources to go ahead and do that. I'm a former IT guy, but my IT days are over. I don't want to go ahead and do this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just admit to stealing it. Okay, so where are we with unemployment? Who in here is unemployed?
I'm unemployable.
Unemployable, right. And there's a Pete story to that too. Okay, I didn't get to tell it. No one else told it. If I have time later on, I'll go ahead and tell it. This is a good story. Okay, but over time, you hear about companies, especially like the mortgage companies, laying off staff as soon as what happened? Market turned, right? Okay, so what happened with mortgage applications? Went down, right? So how many loan originators do you need if there's no demand for it, or little demand? Not much, okay? So either reduce or outsource or sell the division, all of the above. That's what many of the companies did, okay? So other than that, outside of another pandemic, okay, I was a victim of the pandemic in that sense. I lost my job, okay, but I was prepared. Well, that's a different story, okay? So we don't have anyone else who really is unemployed outside of choice, I think. So unemployment, yeah, still very low levels, okay? If you wanted a job, okay, you could find a job, right? Wages continue to grow. This is interesting because you see these lines at the bottom and you see this kind of jagged line on top. These bars are on the bottom are hourly wages. That scraggly line up on top is salaries. Okay? Everybody knows about, California, $20 an hour. Soon to be maybe $25 an hour. And I'm a 7.5 year McDonald's veteran myself. Okay, and I started at McDonald's. I think I was earning $3.35, and my earlier fast food restaurant job before that, I was earning $1.35, and my first IT job, I was making $7.50 an hour, and I was jealous of the person who had experience, who was hired at $15 an hour. Okay, so by way of relevance, of course, that's all in the past, right? Everything looks good when it's in the past. Okay, so look at these people who are now salaried people. What's happening to them? Okay, when your minimum wage starts going up, what happens to your salaried people? Are they going up correspondingly? No. Okay, so what's going to happen? Probably. Any guesses?
We'll quit the salary job.
You quit and become hourly?
He's both in automation and robotics.
Yeah. So when's the last time you went to McDonald's and ordered through a kiosk? And the kiosk was out of order. Okay. And now they're building an automated McDonald's that supposedly no one actually works at, and it's going to be where the restaurant kitchen is up on top, and it'll drop the food down to you as you're in the drive-through lanes.
There's one like that in Fort Worth.
Yeah. So, is that a thing to come? Yeah. Just wait until some kids go there and start jamming stuff up, like the employees at Jack in the Box. I'm like, okay, I shouldn't admit this stuff. So, anyone a Star Trek fan?
Oh, yeah.
Rich.
So, you remember what happened to the Excelsior when Chief Engineer Scott was over there just before they stole the Enterprise to go look for Spock? Yeah, the more they automate things, the easier it is to screw it up. So, yeah, automation, I would not necessarily fear that. But, you know, from an hourly wage perspective versus a salary perspective, you really have to look at that and see how that is going to work for you. Because salary, okay, speaking from my own experience, you know, even getting high reviews and things like that, and then seeing a 3% increase, knowing that inflation has always been greater than 3%, did not bode well for my future. It did not sit well with me. Okay, so interpret that however you want, but something's going to change, right? Some kind of revolution, some kind of civil war from a salary perspective. Something's got to happen because this is not going to last long. Yeah, this is real. This is like, I just got this presentation was put together the past few days because I like to have fresh details. In fact, I added some things just a few hours ago, you know, because what happened today? Who knows what happens today? Yeah, the Fed met to go and decide, or at least communicate, if not already had decided, just announce it, what they were going to do with interest rates. Okay, so I included the new information based upon that. This is how fresh I prefer to have the information come out. Okay, so how do you think you would feel, okay, knowing that your hourly people are going up, okay, and your wage is stagnant, 3%, and that's if you did good. Okay, what if someone else that's on salary now came in 20% higher than you, and maybe they know less than you? How many people have gone through something like that? I know I've seen that. Okay, what are we doing? How much are we spending? Turns out we're spending a lot. Yeah, even though there is, when we ask people how you feel about the economy, okay, who noticed that there is a 10% price increase in gasoline recently? I saw that today, right? So at Costco, I always buy my gas at Costco, so that way I can see what that price is, okay? Last week, I bought it at $4.99, and today it was like $5.50 something, okay? 10% increase, okay? And that's on top of other increases that have come up in the past. So inflation's under control. This is what the current administration says. Inflation's under control, 3%. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so every year, let's assume, okay, not get into the politics, but let's assume every year inflation goes up 3%, 3%, 3%, and prices kind of correspondingly go up, right? Because everything else goes up as a result. You know, those expenses get passed down to us, the consumers, right? So, who's bought beef lately? Okay, the price has gone up or down? Up. Okay, name something that has gone down in price that wasn't already previously inflated, like eggs, right? Eggs skyrocketed. Okay, I remember not that long ago, a couple years, I was able to go ahead and buy eggs at 99 cents a dozen. This is out in Arizona. Okay, and it wasn't even on sale. That's what the price was that time. Okay, now eggs are what, 2 something, whether you go to Costco or somewhere else, right? So that's double, right? So what has to happen for prices to go down for pretty much anything? You have to have a recession now, right? That's going to force things to go down. Now the Fed is trying to prevent a recession, but they say they don't guarantee a soft crash. Okay, so what does that basically mean? That they can't really control it just upon, increases, decreases. So what's going to happen? Okay, yeah, you could have a pretty rough recession, and they warned you, right? So we can't guarantee that, and it's true, they can't guarantee it. Okay, so what's going to happen? All right, there's only one thing that the Fed basically does. Okay, raise interest rates, lower it. Okay. So our spending is up, our confidence is down. Something is going to happen there as well. Yeah, we're definitely spending. Well, this is credit, okay? So we're not spending cash, now we're spending on credit. Now, of course, we've been taught not to use cash as much. And in many parts of the world, there's more of where they don't use cash anymore, right? This is why you see the credit cards basically tap, or they have the RF sensor or RF recognition for that, okay? And so people are using credit to go ahead and buy more and more, okay? Hard to go ahead and put that card away when we want to go and get something right now, right? That urge of instant gratification. So sometimes we need it, sometimes we don't, but we will go ahead and buy it because we have a credit card. So the credit card spending is up.
Do you know, is that an amount on the right-hand side, like household debt, or what is that, like 1.95 mean?
I'm not sure. So unfortunately, I didn't include the audio portion that talks about all this. Okay. Otherwise, it'd be easy for me. Okay, let's go just replay what it was that I stole. I think it is. I think it is the amount of credit debt.
So it's saying if you pull the dollars rates, 1.3 trillion. So it's got to be trillion.
Yeah. Did anyone read up on what constitutes a trillion lately? Because they've been talking about that more and more too. All right, so look it up, pretty interesting. Okay, not good. How do you pay for all this credit card debt? Cash, somehow. Okay, well, cash is either what you earn or what you receive somehow. So your savings, lower and lower. Not good. Yes. So again, you can see where lines are crossing and we're going to have a problem. So today's decision was that they were not going to raise interest rates. In fact, instead of lowering it as in the future as what they thought potentially could happen, they left room to go ahead and kick it up at least one more time. And even if they don't lower it, they say that they are probably going to leave this rate very much the same throughout 2024. So that's all of next year. So what's going to happen? Okay, recession. At some point, that's going to happen. We don't know when exactly. We don't know what it's going to look like. Fed doesn't have an idea what it looks like. US is actually better condition than what we see internationally in other countries too. China, for instance, only because I looked it up, because I wanted to see how those real estate investors are doing, and anyone who has followed what is going on over there, because those development companies are also here in the US on large projects going into default, and government is trying to cover things up and trying to hide potentially a collapse that's going to be bigger than what happened in the US. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, because how much can you really hide when your whole economy collapses? Okay, housing market. Who's familiar with this? How many have you moved in the past 5 years? Okay, and what rates did you get? Buying a house?
3.5.
3.5. Okay. Congratulations, you're in something like the 80% of majority that falls into that particular bracket. Okay. Rich, he was asked earlier if the slides are going to be available to members. I don't know that we've done that in the past. Okay.
Put them in the Facebook group.
Okay, so there we go. You can bring out the magnifying glass and take a look at it. Okay, so in case you couldn't read all the fine print, here's what it looks like in color and banded. Okay, so it's still hard to see, but that basically from going horizontally, it's 100%. Then 75%, then 50%, then 25%. And then going from left to right, it is in years. Yeah. Okay. So look at the very bottom. You see that green portion? That is supposed to be something like 2% or so, something like that. So how many people had those kind of rates available? And then you start looking at 2020, 2021, 22, and seeing how that grew. Okay, and then looking at the blue portion, that is 3 to 4%. No, 4 to 5%.
No, blue's 3 to 4.
Blue's 3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay, good. See, proves I can't see it. All right, so you can see how those lower interest rates started climbing higher and higher and higher, okay? So you're basically in a condition of what we call rate locked, okay? You love that low rate so much that you don't want to give it up, okay? And there's a good reason why you don't want to give it up. We'll go through some actual numbers. Okay. This talks about how many have moved in the past 4 years, and therefore, if you moved in the past 4 years, what's the likelihood you're going to go ahead and move again in the next 4 years? By choice, right? Because some of the companies that basically said you go work remotely, so people move to completely different states just because they could afford a bigger house, and now they say you have to come into the office now, right? You heard of that. Okay, so what's happening to people? I'm not going to go back to that office. That's back in another state. Okay, so, okay, that's your choice. See ya. Okay, that's the kind of situation that's going on right now. So, if you've moved already, you're not likely to move. Okay, so if you're not likely to move, your house is not going to be available for sale. If you're rate locked, you got a good rate, you're also not going to put your house up for sale. All right, if you are a real estate investor, how would you find those people who have houses to sell?
Deal machine.
Okay, so there will always be houses available. Why? Because life happens, right? People pass away, people who are in a relationship split up. There's always going to be a job move for either one or the other, or even both. Okay, there's military stuff, right? Transfers that basically happen all the time, right? There are always houses that are going to be available. Your job is to find them before it shows up on MLS, okay? Or your job could be to find them, to put it on MLS, however you look at it, okay? So think about how those ways are, right? You want to try and eliminate the competition in doing this. So there are different ways to go ahead and do that. But look at where the opportunities are. When someone is rate locked, okay, wouldn't you like to go ahead and get that rate? Yeah. So what is the real estate technique to go ahead and keep an existing mortgage at that rate? Subject to, right. How many of you know how to do a subject to? Okay, we have a few hands. Okay, how about the rest of you that didn't raise your hands? You probably want to learn how to do that, right?
I'll just ask you. I'll just ask you.
You ask me, the paper guy? Yeah, I can answer it. But the ones who raise their hands who have actually done it, those are the ones you really want to talk to. Okay, I'm happy to go ahead and go out there and door knock and then have at it too. All right, I'll see how I can help. Okay, not just subject to, but the overall deal. Yes, rates are not coming down and they have the prospect of going up at least one more time. Okay, forewarned. Okay, what happened just in this past week? Maybe Steve might be able to go ahead and just give us a clue. But I heard, I have not experienced, because I'm not a regular loan originator, okay, but I heard that actually applications went up, okay? Is that meeting what you're here seeing actually?
Yes.
Okay, and any particular reason why?
They're accepting. I think buyers are accepting that is what it is if you want to buy, at least for the ones I've had.
Right, so if you know that the Fed is not going to cut it and actually might even consider another raise, if you want to go ahead and buy a house and you found a house, is now not the time to go ahead and make the offer before it gets bumped up again? Right? You know, so that's the inclination of people right now. But that's just in this past week. Okay, so if you look at this date, I think this is August. Data through July, and then mortgage application data in August is partial. Okay, so that was the general trend up until recently. Okay, we all know home sales are down. Why? Yeah, you can't sell what you don't have, right? You can't buy what you haven't found. You can't buy what isn't available. Okay, so sales are down year over year. Okay, so when what's happening with new homes versus existing homes? What odd phenomena has been happening there?
Right, outside of California, I would say more new homes are being sold than existing.
So what I've been seeing is that new construction sales have picked up, and we're going to have a slide on that particular piece. Okay, and there's a particular reason why. So existing home sales down. Okay, yeah, we pretty much have seen that. Okay, hottest markets in the Midwest. Okay, I don't know how well you can see that, but yeah, even on the source, it was kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can read some of them off. So,
Hartford, Connecticut, I'm one.
Yeah.
Rochester, New York, two.
Okay.
Concord.
Those of you who can read it, just read off what number and,
Five Portland.
Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how much of this is in California? Yeah, pretty much none. Especially if you're in San Francisco or LA. Okay. For those who are agents, who have been agents for more than, say, 3 years, what is a typical inventory? What does the supply look like in a number of months? What should normal look like? Let's say pre-pandemic. 6 months, right? 6 months plus. Okay, so depending on what market you're in, some naturally are going to be longer, some naturally are going to be a little bit shorter, but typically it's going to be around 6 months. Okay, nationally, still below 3 months. In many markets, it's actually still close to a month. Yeah, this one's really hard to interpret, but basically when you compare against all the previous years, that, this particular year, we are minus 9.3% year over year, and from 2019, so pre-pandemic, we're down 47%. Okay. 2/3 of homeowners with the mortgage have a rate at or below 4%. Pat yourself on the back because you timed it just right. Okay, you're probably never going to move at this point, right?
Nope.
Because when are you ever going to see 3 to 4% again without a buy down, right? So what's happening in this marketplace now? Buy downs. Right? What's a buy down? How old are you? See, that's why you don't know, right? Okay, because if you've gone through this kind of stuff before, especially when you actually bought houses at 12, 13, 14, 15% previously, you know what a buy down is because you didn't want to have to pay those kind of rates. So a buy down is basically paying money up front to get a lower interest rate.
Yeah, I did a buy down on my 3 to 2.75.
Look at
Then
that.
I refied 6 months later.
Yeah, and so depending on when you do the buy down, right, you usually run it through some kind of calculator and see, okay, after so many months or years, this is when now you break even, and now that decision actually makes sense. And then to go and refi, right, that now you just kind of blew that, right, potentially. I don't know what the end result actually looked like, but maybe it's worthwhile, maybe not. Okay, so anyone who has a low rate, you're probably not going to sell your property. If you're not putting your property up for sale, nobody else can buy it, right? If something in life happens to you, you're going to be the first one to know it, but no one else will. Not unless someone happens to knock on your door and say, hey, I'm really interested in buying a house in this neighborhood. I love this neighborhood. Do you know of anyone who has their house for sale that I might be able to go talk to? Just so happens that I'm kind of thinking about it, right? Because only you know at that point, okay? So when you get something in the mail, what's that generated from? A list. So what kind of list? Right? You're okay, so the kind of list, okay, are you interested in selling your house? Okay, if you're like me, I'm an out-of-state landlord. So I get text messages that I hate, I get phone calls that I hate, and I remind them, oh, by the way, you know this number is listed on the do not call registry, right? And that you could be reported for, what, $500 per instance, okay? And I am sure to go ahead and report them because I can also get money too, okay? Not that anything ever happens, not that it's helped, okay? Now we'll get mailers, yeah. We show that you're the owner of this property at such and such and such address. If you're interested in selling, be sure to let us know and we can make you a good offer without you having to go ahead and make any repairs or anything like that. Okay? So out of state is one list you can get hit on for sure. If you make payments late, right, you can get on that kind of list. And those get to be pretty interesting too. The way they word stuff, or how they text you, or how they talk to you over the phone. Okay. Not that I encourage you to actually do that just to get these kind of communications, but yeah, it's certainly not the same kind. Okay. And so you want to go ahead and find people who know that they have a problem. This is what Pete talked about, right? Help try and solve those problems. But you have to find those problems. Okay, Bill Cook, he's known for door knocking. He wants to actually meet with the people right there and then because there's no competition at that point. Okay, Pete does it differently, right? He has such a broad network. Deals are basically funneling into him by word of mouth, okay? Through his network, through past relationships, right? People that he's sold houses to, bought houses from, borrowed money from, you know, they're all finding deals and now letting him know. Okay, so we can't have a creative finance session without having a financial calculator problem in there, right? Andy would consider me to be remiss if I didn't include something. So how much is sales tax right now, just roughly? How much?
8.5%.
8.5%? Okay, you have no problem paying it, right? Not that you have any choice, right? Of course, in other places, sales tax is higher. Actually, in some places, over 10%. Okay, so 3.5% doesn't sound like very much, right? Okay, we're going to go ahead and see what the impact of 3.5% is. Okay, so if you have a low rate and you were thinking of selling your house and buying another house at a current rate, okay, and by the way, the presentation is updated with the rates that I saw as after the decision was made today, so you have an idea. Okay, what is that? $1,000 difference, right? Maybe not a big deal. Okay, 3.5%, okay, $1,000 difference a month.
It's like $5,000.
Okay. This is what $1,000 difference actually means. Okay, so I know Steve is a loan originator. Anyone else? Okay. So what is your debt to income ratio at this point? I know it used to be a long time ago, maybe like 1/3 of your income for housing, something like that. So now are we looking, is 3.5 a way to go ahead and look at things? Or do we use a different kind of number?
Or like the percentage of income to that.
Yep.
So 43% residential and 46%
46%, 43%. Okay, so 3.5 is probably not enough then, right? Because it'd be on the low side. Okay, so you play with the numbers And if you use 4.3 to something, okay, your numbers are actually going to be higher than this. Okay, so how many people have an annual income increase of like $45,000? Raise your hands. How about half of that? How about a quarter of that? $10,000.
There we go.
Right? So this is the kind of difference you begin to see in real life. And actually, according to our experts here, actually it's going to be a higher differential in terms of actual dollars. Okay. Let's look at it some more. Okay. These are updated as of today, a few hours ago.
Goodwin?
Yep.
I just want to chime in. For the practical effects of that, this happened to Angela a while ago. She had an offer on a house, and while she was negotiating back and forth, the offer came in, and she told me no, they withdrew the offer. Why? Because the rates had gone up, and when they got the qualifying letter, and now like 3 weeks later, they had jumped up, and they were already pushing it, and they dropped value like $30,000 they lost, so they weren't even in the running. They had to just walk away from that deal.
Yep.
So literally, all of a sudden, the buying power went from 440 to like 405. Took them right out of the house.
Yes. Now,
You hear what you said?
So basically what I was saying is in this market where rates continue to increase, for anybody who is looking to do traditional financing, I always say lock the rate as soon as you get it. And I know people are like, how long is a pre-approval good for? Yeah, your credit's good for 90 days, but these rates can change whenever. And in that case, that happens more times than not in markets like this. So it's unfortunate when you finally find it. So you gotta hurry up and find it.
how long is underwriting taking at this point?
Pretty quick. I mean, you can get it done in a week.
Okay. Because the loan originators who are left don't have a whole lot to do, right? Okay, so I didn't go into a lot of detail about this, but let's say your income stayed flat. So how does that look like when you try and buy a house? How much house can you buy at that point? Yeah, a lot less. Okay, so if we're talking about a 40-something% difference in what you're able to go ahead and buy just because of this change of the rate, now you look at how much less of a house you are going to buy paying that same amount. Okay, that is a really, really big impact. That's why you see the effects on the marketplace right now, just on 3.5%. And actually, what we're talking about, could be higher, right? Depending on what your current interest rate is, 3.5%. Some of you have gotten less than 3.5%, right? So, yeah, if you ever sell that place, make sure you learn how to sell it properly. Okay, so as of today, where I got these numbers from, okay, 6.89, so down a little bit, okay, and that's just for right now. Could, these fluctuate, of course, daily, and so numbers are not going to change that much. But, what's really strange about this? Okay, so what does Pete say about taking on debt? Does he like debt?
Yes.
Yeah, he likes debt. In fact, he encourages that the longer you can stretch out that debt, the better. Okay, and he has this as part of his calculator course. We went through this last month. Okay, so how much is a payment in the future worth in today's dollars? And we actually had one where it's like 8/10,000ths of a cent, something like that, in a 2,000 payment scenario. Okay, so don't be afraid to go ahead and take on debt, but stretch it out, use future dollars. Okay, so I did a 15-year mortgage for my properties, and I paid down to go ahead and get a better rate, and it's like 3 something. Okay, do I regret that? Not at the time. I didn't go through and refine when the opportunity was there. I could have, and I probably should have, because I went to a 15-year, and then I could have refied, got a lower rate, and stretched it out to 30 years. Okay, I didn't listen to Pete enough. Okay. Who checks on the value of their house? Many of you who are not putting your hands up, I know you're doing it. Probably several times a day. Because you want to see those price jumps just like you used to. You're just waiting to see when the market's going to turn again and try and time something. I know you guys. Okay, so yeah, prices have dropped down, all right, but have they dropped down that much? My California perspectives, yes, okay, but California is probably very speculative to begin with, right? So probably too high. All right, so is it adjusting to more normal? Well, anything down is more normal than what it was previously, because it could not sustain a continually high rate of appreciation. Okay, so most of you should have already seen where it's already bottomed out and now climbing back up again. Okay, I know the properties that I'm tracking, that I'm seeing that. Okay, and I'm seeing this also hold true for out-of-state properties too, the ones that I track. Yes. So those of you who have properties here and also out-of-state, you should still see the majority of your appreciation still intact. So it's a good thing, right? As long as you didn't take on additional debt, you have equity that's available. Is that a good thing or bad thing? So those of us who are real estate investors will ask the question, can you eat equity? Can you pay bills with equity? Well, it's not work, you could, but that's just short term, right? So Pete likes to incur additional debt. Why? Because now you get unlock those dollars out of that equity, and now you're putting it to work for you. Okay? This is a personal decision, by the way. This is something you have to look at for yourself. So it could be a thing where for your personal home, you want to have it free and clear. Okay? And investment properties, you might want to have a few of them free and clear, so that way you can use it as a bank. You can go ahead and have someone be in the first position lien on that, take money out, and use that money to go ahead and do other things. Whether it's with a private lender or institutional. Okay. You guys look like firsts, right? Only firsts? You only do firsts? No? Steve?
Seconds.
Seconds?
Yeah.
Really? Arizona? I gotta try.
How much are you looking for in Arizona?
150,000. I'll pay 8%. Take it for 3 to 5 years. 180-day call. It's up on the exchanger board every week. Okay. It's with just the first position alone, the current loan to value is under 12%. Okay. Combined loan to value with $150,000, you'll be around 54%, something like that. So very, very safe.
Any reason why you wouldn't just do a cash out and leave it on? The rate.
Because I'm at a 3-something% rate.
But have you averaged the rates this way and what you have on the first and the second?
I have not.
There you go.
But I don't want to deal with the institution.
No, but can you repeat her question?
No, I was just asking if he had averaged the rate that he has on the first compared to what the rate would be on the second to see where that would put him and what it truly is dollar-wise on the difference for the payback.
Yeah, I have not done that. Oh, and there's a reason why, and I was just about to get into that. So I could do this institutionally, no problem. In fact, I can get better than 8%, right? I can do better. Okay. The 8% is because I want to give a investor an opportunity to do better than what they were doing before. So if you're an astute bank saver and you moved your money into one of these 5% accounts that you're getting right now, would I be happy to go and pay you 3% more on the same dollar? Yeah, I'm giving you that opportunity. Okay, and anyone who is a lender understands how safe, okay, or how risky a combined loan to value of 50-something% is. Okay, we're not talking about 80%, 90% combined loan to value at this point. Okay, and what I'm basically saying is that the higher the percentage, the more debt that's on the property, the less equity that's available, the more dangerous it is for you, right? Because the market drops down, now that equity buffer has been eaten up. So if we have a 40+% buffer, you're pretty safe, right? Because properties have already gone down and valuations are creeping back up, okay? So this is an opportunity for an investor to go ahead and make more than what they're doing in a current savings account, okay, without having to be a lender themselves, okay? You know, in a lender, I basically mean by hard money lender where you're looking at 10% or better, right? That's what I would do. And that's what I would do with that money, okay? So I borrow at 8% and I lend it out at 10%. What did I just do? Yeah, I arbitraged 2% on that. Okay, so I'm making money on the money that I borrowed. Now I'm going to have expenses in this too, right? I'm going to be paying for all the expenses of getting that loan in place, making sure everything's recorded, all those different things. Well, that's all to be expected. Okay, so it's not as easy as it sounds. There's more work that's involved. Okay, but that's what I'm going to do. And can I do better than 10%? Yeah. You watch us on exchangers, right? What's our typical loan offer rate that Andy puts out?
7.5.
You wish. Yeah.
Oh,
For-
and then when he offers.
Yeah. What? Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah.
So on a typical So Farrah's talking about a new thing that Andy has been doing the past several sessions, where up to $5,000 or $5,000 increments, he'll pay 7.5%. But if he's lending money,
Oh, no, that's totally different.
yeah, totally different. 15%, 4 points. Hey, he's doing it cheaper than I am.
Interest only, too.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. Okay, so when I was in Cincinnati, it was very common for me to do 16%, 6 points. Why? Because most of the loans are under $100,000. Okay, so if I lost $100,000, how many loans would I have to do in order to get that money back? Okay, this is why you normally don't see, so let's ask the experts. What's the minimum that you guys loan at? Institutionally.
75 to 100, but I rarely do those.
75 or 100, but I personally don't do those.
Okay, so that means 0, right? regardless of rate, if you don't do it, doesn't matter what the rate is, right?
Correct.
80,000.
80,000?
80,000. Oh, I have some competition in the room. Okay, so this is what you can expect. Okay, so when you do the private lending, when you do the institutional lending, look at how that impact is going to be. From an investor standpoint, see in which seat you are in, which hat you are wearing, which side of the loan document you want to be on. Okay, borrowing is one thing, lending is another. Okay, how many of you are housing providers? What we used to call landlords. Oh, good number of you. Okay, how many of you raised rents to market early on? Yeah, everyone? Okay. How many? So, what are your tenants saying now? Yeah, they're asking for concessions, or when they move out and you still try and get what was market then, you're not getting it. Okay, so are you getting longer lead times to fill that vacancy? Are you having to sift through more applications to find the ones that actually work out? Yeah, the different things are happening in that space too. Okay, if you couldn't read it before, you almost guaranteed you can't read this one. All right, so left side is not too bad. Okay, so where you don't want to be, year-over-year cuts in asking rent. Okay, Boise City, Idaho. Who has properties there? No one? All right. Fort Worth. No. Or Destin, Florida. No? Austin, Texas. Liberal city. Okay, no one wants to admit it. Phoenix, Arizona. All right, I have a property in Greater Phoenix. It's in Glendale. Okay. But my rent, because I have a very good tenant, I never raised his rent to market. In fact, he's probably $600 under market right now. So I have plenty of room to go ahead and keep raising up on. And why am I able to go and do that? Because of when I purchased that property. Okay, and the way I financed it. And so I can do that. Las Vegas, Atlanta, Vallejo. Okay, so that's Northern California. So that's Fairfield and Napa. Sarasota. Yeah, my Sarasota friends. Sarasota, Bradenton. Yeah. Okay, those are the places not to be in. All right, so if you are going to invest out of state, where do you want to go? Do you want to be in Midland, Odessa, Texas? Try investing out there in the summertime when the AC breaks down and your tenant tells you, and then you realize because you're here in California that they haven't changed the AC filter ever since they moved in. Springfield, Massachusetts, a liberal state. Madison, Wisconsin. Illinois, People's Republic of Illinois. So says a fellow investor, that's not me. Trenton, New Jersey, College Station, Texas, Lincoln, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, Fargo, North Dakota. These are increases, but how many of you are comfortable enough to invest out of state? You can if you build out your network. Okay, so nothing says that you can't, doing it by yourself too, but it's a lot more work, a lot more effort. Okay, you build out your network, it makes it easier. okay? You could have properties here that you watch out for someone, someone else can do the same for you. Okay, earlier we talked about new homes. What's going on with new homes? Why is that actually outselling in many cases existing? Well, if you had to pay 7% at a rate, okay, and you had actually new home building around you, okay, where is your dollar potentially going further? Well, in other words, would you want to buy an older house that you have to put money into to remodel? Or you buy a new house, then you just have to shake out the issues that the builder during construction put in. Right? So a new house, depending on when you get into the phase, you pick out your paint, your cabinets, your flooring, however you want different things, okay? Builders are doing incentives. They're doing both the buy downs on rates and they're putting in bonuses. So when's the last time during the run-up, how many builders were including like a free big screen TV or swimming pool or stuff like that? When I bought my starter home, another story in Arizona, okay, I got a 16,000 gallon pool included, okay, and that was just an incentive to go ahead and buy the house. And during the run-up, nobody was doing that, right? You want a pool? Now, it's going to cost you something like $40,000, and you wait a year for the pool builders to be able to come around and do it. Okay, now they're doing incentives again and rate buy downs. Okay, this one's pretty easy to understand. Even new home prices are going down. So now you understand why these incentives from the builders have come up. Okay, so either before or coming up, you're going to see where before and then after incentives, what was happening with the new homes, where they will cross. Okay, so glut of homes under construction, yeah. So we've been hearing about lack of inventory. Building permits have consistently gone up, but builders are constrained by what? Several things. Number one, the cost of land, right? So if land is expensive, what kind of house can you build on that land? Expensive house, right? If you have land cheap, that's when you can build these starter homes. What's a starter home in California now?
6,700.
Say that again?
650.
650. 650,000. And what's the configuration of that home?
3.2 you want.
3.2. Right, 3.2 is your bread and butter house, right? We've all heard that at some point or another, right? 3 bedroom, 2 bath, okay? That's pre-pandemic, because once you had the pandemic and then you're working remotely and then the kids are schooling remotely, how many kitchen tables can you share? How many bedrooms have desks in there? Okay, and when everyone's talking, how public is it at that point? Okay, that's kind of hard. So now, this is why we had additional homes being purchased, because now people are looking for larger bedrooms, so that way they can have a desk in each of the rooms, or they have one room which is set up specifically as an office. Okay, before that was a luxury to have. Now it's something where they kind of have to have it. So for instance, my sister works for Huntington Hospital, and her department is 100% remote. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, other people I know, they moved out of state because they could work remotely. And guess what? The companies said, okay, now you have to do hybrid. So you show up in the office 2 or 3 days a week, and you work remotely the rest of the time. How's that work when you live in a different state? Not too well. Okay. I know one person who is doing it internationally, okay, and how she's doing it, I have absolutely no idea, but she's doing it. Insurance. Bad news. California's in for trouble. Okay, I was already hearing it from my Florida friends. So the way you read this is everything that's green is good. Everything that's yellow, shows some concern. Red, it's a problem, right? So we all understand that now, right? That part we can see. Okay, Florida has a problem with insurance. And maybe lately you might have heard more and more about California. And depending on where your network goes, maybe you have also heard the same about Louisiana. Okay. Do we have any insurance people here in the room? Yes? Yes? Care to elaborate on what's going on?
Well, I'm out of the game, but I've been licensed for over 10 years now, and there's a lot of changes. I just recommend that you really have a good relationship with your agent, because that's who's going to have your back. So I don't do insurance anymore, but I've just seen the industry change. So I recommend a really good relationship with your agent, and if they're not on your side, it's time for a new one, or it's time for a change. Because there's other solutions out there. It is scary, but it's possible.
Okay, so some of the things you might have heard is that some insurers have, to a certain degree, pulled out of California. Yes, that can be a problem. So when it comes up for renewal and then you get a non-renewal notice, it's not because you did anything wrong, it's just because of stuff that's happening in California. And also across the rest of the U.S. Okay, and so other insurers, they will still write policy for current policy holders. So basically they'll take renewals, but they may not take on any new ones. So who's taking on new ones? Well, potentially the state of California. Of course, there's the other option, the Pete option, that if you have enough properties, then you self-insure. Okay, because the cost of insurance, if you have enough properties, is enough to go ahead and make payments on another property, and another property, and another property. Okay, so self-insurance, you either pay insurance or you basically buy more properties. For Pete, he's at the point where he can buy more properties with the money, so he's self-insured. Okay, so look into the insurance when you're buying another property right now. Make sure that you can get insurance on it. How is this impacting? Okay, any first-hand stories about renewals, non-renewals, raising costs, things like that? Yeah.
I've actually heard from several people who, and this happened to us too, who we went and asked a question, literally just calling and asking a question about insurance policy, and they would use it for any little excuse to cancel or say we're not going to renew you. I'm hearing that from multiple friends that are just letting them know that they call and ask, hey, well, I moved into the back house, my ADU. Oh, you're not in the main house anymore? You're canceled. And that literally happened to either one of the club members or at mixed lunch. It just happened to another one. So just keep that in mind. Just calling to question, and they're looking for reasons due to this 3% interest insurance rates cap that they go. Remember, the insurance companies are playing chicken with the state of California and other states right now, and they're running instead of it's saying that, oh, well, we'll leave the state if we can't raise more than 3% or 4%, whatever it is. and the states are saying, well, then leave, but then a lot of them are leaving. It's gonna come to a showdown, but really what's going on, you see, is an insurance versus government fight on the big level, and we're all in the middle of it. And that's actually what's going on in all these states, at least Florida and California.
Commissioner makes a difference.
Yeah, I was in the middle, so I have for all the rentals, most of my rentals are up in the mountains, up in the Crestline and Lake Arrowhead, and the insurance options are very limited, especially for fire insurance. You have to do a fire insurance wrap, and it pretty much leaves us with state insurance. And I actually found one, or my broker did, that actually writes a fire insurance policy. However, they are able to adjust my rates at will. So in the middle of my term, they raised it $30 on every single house. So like overnight I paid, $200 more a month in insurance, and there was no recourse. I didn't dare ask a question, like Evan said. So I just said, okay, thanks, sounds good. Went about my day.
That's the surplus line.
I want to make sure everyone can speak to this.
Well, this year we got hit with the California Fair Plan. Does anybody know what that is? Yeah. Our rate, our insurance on the house was like $1,200, and the Fair Plan was $1,600, and you gotta pay it up front. It's not bad.
That's not bad.
Wow.
Mine was one else.
Yeah. Here, $1,600.
400 over a year, it's okay. I recommend raising your deductible, so that's why I said have a good relationship with your agent, and they will recommend how to save you money.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can also help you out.
Anyone else have the hand raised?
So mine was interesting, so I do mobile homes. So 4 months ago, I got insurance on a mobile home, and it was $83. Today, I get a quote for a new one in another area. It is a little bit bigger, but it's still vacant. It's $183.
Same company?
Same company. Now, it's not the same company because the company that has my insurance on the first one, they don't write anymore and they don't cover it anymore. And foremost, they don't do it anymore. And so now the new one, because there's only 2 companies that are now doing it, that's what the rate was. And I was like, you gotta be freaking kidding. $183 per month.
So
For a 6-month term. It's a short
say it
term.
was vacant?
It is vacant, I did that,
That's
make sure.
why it's more expensive.
Well, it's still ridiculous. The other one is vacant too. It's still a big jump. It's a little, it's a little bit different, but that was very shocking. But there's nobody else that's doing it now, just like to your point.
How can you self-insure houses? Elaborate on that?
So self-insure basically means that you have the assets and the cash flow where if something happens, one house burns down, you have the cash flow to go ahead and just replace it yourself. Okay, so Pete can do that. Okay, so Pete laid out a scenario where he was looking at how much he was paying for insurance, and he figured that he could buy another house just on what he was paying on premiums. So he decided to go ahead and do exactly that. And as he had more houses and got more cash flow, well look, I can buy another house. So he did. And then another, and then another, and then another. Okay, and so cash flow helps in that respect. Okay, but you have to be able to get up to that level first. So understand that. And so if you're borderline, maybe that's what you need to go ahead and, it sounds counterintuitive that to get out of an insurance problem, you're going to buy more houses that could not be insured. Right? Doesn't sound right? But the more rent that you have coming in, that allows you to go ahead and take care of those kind of problems.
She has a mic.
Goodwin?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just want to continue what we were saying. Keep in mind, guys, Pete buys all these houses and he does not use institutional banks at all. And he believes in no cash. So I still can't wrap my head around that. Because he's like, he'd rather not have cash, right?
That's right.
And he does deals all day long
All day long.
with no cash and no institutional banks.
And he doesn't have an office per se, he uses a McDonald's. Right? So Madera, McDonald's, 8:30 in the morning, him and everybody else there, yeah, every morning he's there.
My question was just, it's not enough to have the properties, the equity, it's the cash flow that you need to have when you self-insure.
That's correct. You have to have this cash flow that allows you to go ahead and mitigate those issues. Okay, so cash flow solves a lot of problems.
Oh, I was just playing
Who brought their sleeping bags? I didn't put that in today's posting on the Facebook group, but you know, I did warn you that we could be running into some time. And
I just wanted to mention, another thing that came to mind that he mentioned is that a lot of the places where he has his properties, the value is in the land itself, because he's held it for so long that if something were to happen to the actual property itself, it doesn't cost him as much to build a brand new place, which would, by the way, increase the value because the value is in the land.
okay, so who remembers what Pete's buy box is? So St. Pete in Florida, it's waterfront property. Okay, and so what's global warming going to do to waterfront property? Okay, so yeah, we don't have time to discuss all that stuff. All right, but that's his buy box. That's what he prefers. Okay, pat yourselves on the back. Look at that. Investors account for 26% of home purchases in June. Okay, you are the ones who are driving changes in the housing community, in the places where you buy. Okay, I don't think any of you, at least I don't know of any of you, who buys a house and makes it worse and then rents it out.
At least not the liberal. I didn't think of a couple of instances, but accidents.
Yeah, I've seen some of the shortcuts that people do, and I kind of question things, but you know, someday I'll show the pictures that I took of places that I looked at in Cincinnati, that houses were actually available for sale, and you look at the issues that were there, you kind of wonder how and why, you know, what's going through their heads. Okay, and it wasn't clear enough that you guys are the ones who are responsible for driving this area. Okay, small and mid-sized investors. We're not talking about the hedge funds. You do this one house at a time. You're driving this market. Delinquencies and defaults. Okay, closing thoughts portion is pretty short. So we still might actually make it on time.
On time.
On time, yeah.
Okay, so mortgage, so this bottom portion, mortgage payments past due 30 to 59 days in the US. Okay, the red portion, Past due 60 to 89 days, and green is 90 plus days. Okay, so shouldn't green actually be bad if it's 90 plus days delinquent? Okay, so just kind of flip that around. Okay, so you aren't seeing a tidal wave. So for those of you who are waiting for Resolution Trust Corporation to come back, that's not going to happen. Okay, and those of you who don't know who RTC was, you're obviously too young. What's RTC? Okay, so back in the previous... Before you were born, there was this financial crisis that happened in the early 2000s. Okay, and a federal agency was set up called Resolution Trust Corporation, and they were tasked with the job of moving real estate REOs owned by the banks to get them sold. Okay, and what's REOs? Those are the bank-owned properties that went through the foreclosure process that no one bought. Okay, and so you had this federal agency or entity that was doing all that stuff. And they had thousands and thousands and thousands of properties. They were operating for years to go ahead and offload properties and the bad people associated with it and things like that. So give you an idea how it was in Arizona when that happened. There's a city called City of Maricopa. Okay, this is on the southern portion of Phoenix. Okay, brand new homes that were built, and then as homes were abandoned, literally blocks of homes, then garage doors disappeared. Of course, everything inside the house disappeared. Then drywall started disappearing, right? You know, and why is the drywall disappearing? Because you had copper piping in the walls, right? So the copper pipes were being taken, of course, wire, everything else, okay? And then as you start driving through the neighborhoods, okay, all of a sudden you start seeing the studs disappear. All the wood framing was disappearing, right? And so you literally had just houses just kind of disappearing down to, you know, it starts leaning over one side because they cut out one wall to get to the wood, and now the roof is falling in, and then next time you drive by, there's no roof, okay, and then next time you drive by, then the rest of the house is slowly disappearing. This is not by an investor who's clearing it to go and rebuild. This is people who are scavenging everything that's in the house. All the windows are gone, all the doors are gone, everything stripped, okay? And literally you get down to, in some cases, just foundation left, you know, with just stubs, right? And so ACs were long gone, you know, those are the first things to be taken, okay? And so that's what we're, basically when you went through RTC, sometimes you had to visit the property to actually see what was there, because at the time they took a picture, which could have been 2 weeks ago, okay, you go out there and then you don't see anything except foundation and stubs, okay, it got to be that bad, right? And then we're talking about blocks, okay, we're not talking about individual houses, and literally no one was living there anymore, okay, so that's what happened to the city of Maricopa. Okay, foreclosures. So those of you who have taken foreclosure classes think you're going to cash in and money spent. Wrong way. It's not going to happen. Okay, and those of you who are part of my Facebook group, what I have is the page is a Japanese block print of a tidal wave, because I was expecting this kind of stuff to happen. Not going to happen. Right? It's not even going to happen for a number of reasons. Okay? Why? Who has an idea why
foreclosures are not going to happen the way it happened previously.
Fully qualified buyers and high FICO scores.
Say that again?
Fully qualified buyers and high FICO scores.
Yeah? Equity.
We had equity last time.
And less funding loans.
We had plenty of equity last time, it's not equity.
Well,
We had 60% equity last time on average, it's not that.
Also, the banks the banks should be,
yeah.
the banks are terrified of going, I mean, that was a bad look. It wasn't like
Banks are doing it differently now. So what's happening is that these properties are disappearing because of the paper. So the paper is better written at this point. It's not junk paper as it was before. That's what we used to call bad paper or toxic debt. So now the paper is better and there's equity in the property. So if you've gone into and talked to some of these sellers who are doing subject to things like that, okay, do they really need to do that? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. You know, they could be fine just selling it because they have equity in the property. All they need is time. I know I had one deal that we actually told the seller, hey, you are better off to go ahead and list this on MLS, at least give it a try, because you're going to get a better price through that than you will through us. We will buy your property, but it's going to be at this particular price. Okay, so at least try this first, and sure enough, she got it sold. So most of this stuff is being sold as paper. Okay, so hedge funds are buying the paper. They're not necessarily buying the properties per se. Of course, the paper covers the property. So you're not going to see it at the foreclosure level as what you saw previously. And foreclosures are going to pick up, but are they going to come in the way that we've seen it? Yeah, there's going to be some, but it's not going to be a whole lot. Okay, so a lot of equity this time out. And yeah.
Goodwin?
Yep.
Steve had something.
I just wanted to say, we service our own loans. We do a lot of loans to flippers. And right now, our foreclosures have really skyrocketed. And that's why we always want, skin in the game, because the people that can't pay us anymore for whatever reason, they'll still be able to potentially sell or get another lender to take us out. But we've noticed that activity has really skyrocketed as of this month.
So there's different reasons with this as well. And when you know who your lender is and you have a relationship, that's better than an institution. Another plus for doing business with someone that you know, as opposed to an institution where every time you call, even a few minutes later, you're going to get a different body you have to explain everything all over again and identify yourself, go through and answer the same questions all over again, just to get to the point where you get put on hold again and possibly get disconnected again. So keep that in mind. Okay, see if I can do this in a few minutes.
We got
2 minutes. Okay. Get the PowerPoints from the Facebook group. You can read this yourself. That's one slide. Okay. Snapshots of what was basically posted just on the internet that you could see. All the debates, all the concerns, all the chaos that's going on. So from an investor point of view, chaos is good. We live in chaos. We do well in chaos. Okay? Because we have the techniques, we have the knowledge, we have the relationships. You have all the people around you who can help you out. Don't try and navigate this all by yourself. Okay. And here's the contact information for the person who actually put all this together. So if you actually want to see a legible version, you can contact them and ask for their slide deck. Okay, now we haven't done this before, but I'm pre-announcing what we're gonna do next month. Okay, so tied in with all that we talked about. So there's basically a couple things that you should have gotten out of looking at the data. Okay, so one is, what are two techniques that you should be able to go ahead and employ based upon the kind of data that you saw tonight? So you want to go ahead and capture those low rates. So subject to is an obvious one. Okay, and with all that equity that's there, that potentially you can have someone do seller finance, and seller finance works in certain situations where someone doesn't want to go ahead and have a tax hit all at one time. Okay, so that's publication 537 IRS tax code. So have that available. Show them that this is actually a common use that the IRS recognizes, and employ that. Okay, structure a seller finance deal where there potentially wasn't one previously, and have the seller be happy to do it. Right? Okay, so next month Andy is going to talk about subject 2.